I welcome all Laravel fans to the Cutcode channel. Today we have a new section. For those who did not know, I will give a little advice or show films from the world and so on. Someone might not know about them, but someone I hope will even come in handy. Don't forget to share it in the comments and be sure to like it. I will be extremely grateful. And we are starting. Friends, today we will talk about one interesting feature in Laravel. In simple terms, it is called tab. And why would I seem to have an interest in this helper? Yes, the fact is that Taylor has repeatedly said that this is his favorite helper. And if you search Laravel itself, you will notice that it is used in a huge number of places, but at the same time, few people know about this helper. Why is it, and what is it eaten with? Now we will try to fix this moment. Yes, friends, helper is extremely simple, but still it's worth understanding its essence. Looking at an example of application, looking at what's under its hood. As a result, expand your thinking a bit and find areas of application in your projects. We will also look at a few examples from Laravel itself and talk about the differences between this helper. But within the framework of a collection or a class for working with strings, let's follow the rules and we'll start. Of course, with a description in the documentation. So friends, helper is called tab, and it has two default arguments. The first is any value, and the second is a closure that also takes the first value. And everything that we will do inside this anonymous function will in no way affect what tab will return. It will still return the first value. In this case, it's the user. Only in this anonymous function it transforms it a bit. And even if we make a return here in this anonymous function, it still will not affect the result in any way. That is, tab will always return the first parameter. And in an anonymous function, we can perform any actions on this parameter or on something else, but this will not affect anything. Yes, we can also not pass the closure as the second parameter, but leave it empty and call methods. Within the first value, as here we have a user module and we share the update method from it. But in the end, we have an update. Just like save should return an integer, but with us, thanks to tab, the user will return but already updated. Let's see what benefits we achieve by using this helper. Let's copy this code and transfer it to me. That is, imagine that we have some kind of controller where we need to save the user and return the user in the response. That is, further we will already have a return user. And in this case, everything will work for us. Well, or of course, here it will look like this even shorter. But if we didn't use tab, we would have to do it like this. Yes, we can't return. Save here, the way save is an integer. We would have to make a save and then return the user. And we would have such a code. With tab, we get much more concise and cleaner. So friends, before we look at some more examples, but from within the framework itself, we'll take a look inside this helper and see how it works under the hood. Let's fall into it. An extremely simple function. We are not watching this moment. It works for us when the anonymous function did not pass what we considered in the documentation, when we work within methods from the first parameter, and in the standard case, when an anonymous function is passed to us, then we initially simply call it, passing our first parameter to it. But in the end, regardless of all this, we return exactly the first parameter and not the result of the callback. If we don't have a callback passed and there is only one argument, then we wrap this parameter in a proxy where we use the callMagic method to call methods from this first parameter. But in the end, we again return not the result of executing this method, but return our first parameter. That is the same thing that happens to us along the way when we set an anonymous function. It's that simple. Yes, friends, let's set the result for clarity. Let's see what's going on there. Only in my database is not name but first name. Okay, and we see that we return exactly the first parameter, despite what is happening in our anonymous function. And even if we do return save here, and our save returns an integer, we will still end up with our first parameter. Let's also consider the option when we miss the closure, but work further with the help of a magic call within the methods of the first parameter. Let's say there is an update, and here we will also try to update first name, and our update also returns integer, but we get the first parameter. Friends, let's also look at examples from the framework itself, and we can go far and look into the create method, which I think you use very often. And to see what we have going on there, just write the same thing. In this case, it doesn't matter. And let's fall into the create method. And here we will see exactly the same tab and exactly the same logic. It seems to me that before that, when you used this method inside, under the hood, you meant something like this to yourself, just the example that we were considering. But no, helper tab is also used here, and the code looks like this, and in my opinion, it turns out much more interesting. Also friends, I ran a search on the framework, found places where the helper tab is used. There are a huge number of them. You can also search for more examples. Let's say as session guard, where tab is used, we end up returning an eloquent modal, adding the password hash to it. But in this case, without an anonymous function, we call the eloquent method of the modal to save within the proxy. But in the end, we also return the eloquent modal here. Next, we have a cache manager here, tab repository, that is, it is the repository that will return here. But at the same time, we work a little from the outside and add an event dispatcher to this repository. Here is another example. Moving on to Carbon. Here we have a method that allows us to travel through time. We set any time. Next, return the callback, and in the anonymous function, we specify the default time for Carbon. It also turns out an interesting example when we immediately return values, but at the same time, in an anonymous function, we reset to 0 and return the environment to its original state. Friends, it would be very interesting to know your opinion on whether you would like to see such videos more often, where we look, let's say, under the hood, studying how Laravel works. But let's also look at tab in collections and in string helper. And here, friends, we will have enough documentation, and tab behaves a little differently here. We can perform any actions on our string in an anonymous function, but we cannot modify it in any way so that we do not return here. Further, here we will have the original string, which we got in this method, but how to interact with it, create some kind of log or something else from the outside, we can here in this method. Let's take another look at the collections. And in collections we have the same thing as with strings. That is, we do not modify our value in any way, but we can interact with it. In this case, we just create a lock within the collections. The difference from tab, say from pipe, is just that tab does not modify anything. And if we call the pipe method, then here it will just modify the original object. Friends, that's all. Thank you all for watching. I really hope for your likes and comments. And also do not forget to subscribe, those who have not done so yet. After all, according to statistics, only 50% of those who watch subscribe. Thanks again for watching. See you in the next videos on the Cutcode channel.